My name is Heather Collins. I'm 29, and if you had asked me a year ago what heartbreak looked like, I would have painted it loud and dramatic. Raised voices, tears spilling in public, someone standing in a doorway begging, while someone else slammed a car door hard enough to shake the windows. I would have described chaos. What I never imagined was heartbreak that crept in quietly, like a slow leak you don't hear at first. It seeps into the walls, into the air, until one day you realize you've been breathing something toxic for months, and telling yourself it's just how things are. I work as a logistics coordinator for a shipping company in Arizona. It's one of those jobs where success is invisible and failure is spotlighted. When everything runs smoothly, no one notices. When one shipment is delayed or a driver misses a window, suddenly every problem has your name attached to it. I've always been good at taking disorder and finding the pattern inside it. I map routes, juggle schedules, reroute trucks before problems turn into emergencies. I like the predictability, the quiet satisfaction of knowing that if I do my job right, things don't collapse. Outside of work, my life is steady, not exciting, not glamorous, just solid. I've lived in Phoenix since college because the jobs were there, and at the time, housing didn't feel completely impossible. I rent a 2-bedroom apartment in Tempe with a balcony that faces the street instead of a trash area. Real parking included. That alone feels like a luxury here. My furniture isn't fancy, but it's mine. It's sturdy. Nothing wobbles. Nothing is being held together by duct tape and optimism. I'm not going to pretend I look like someone who belongs on a billboard. Average height, average build. Strong in the practical sense you get from going to the gym to feel healthy, not to impress strangers. Dark hair, kept simple. I don't spend nearly an hour styling it because I value sleep more than perfection. I take care of myself, but I don't obsess over myself. At least I didn't back then. I met Ethan Ward in the spring of 2020 at work. He wasn't new to the company, just transferred from another location, still learning the rhythms of our building. The first time I really noticed him, he was standing at the coffee machine, staring at it like it had personally wronged him. "Is it broken?" I asked. He looked over, startled, like I'd interrupted an important negotiation. Then he laughed, soft and a little surprised. "I think it's punishing me for needing caffeine." I showed him the trick. Wiggle the lever, tap the side, wait for the blinking light to stop. The machine was ridiculous, temperamental, but once you knew how to deal with it, it behaved. Ethan watched like I'd just performed a magic trick. "So you're the one who makes things work," he said. That should have been my first warning. Because sometimes when people say that, they don't mean it as admiration. Sometimes they mean it like a role they expect you to fill. He was charming in a quiet way, not flashy, not trying to impress a room. He listened. When he laughed, it felt real. When he talked, he chose his words carefully. He came across as steady, like someone who had himself figured out. After college, I dated casually, but nothing ever stuck. Too many men who thrived on chaos. Too many who wanted a caretaker instead of a partner. By the time I was 27, I'd started telling myself that maybe I was better off focusing on my routines, my work, my calm. Then, Ethan started showing up at the coffee station at the exact same time every morning, like a coincidence that repeated just a little too perfectly. We talked about weekends, irritating coworkers, shows we were streaming. He had this dry humor that made even mundane topics feel lighter. About a month in, he asked me to get lunch. Nothing elaborate, just a sandwich place nearby that served portions big enough to make you question your life choices. We talked too long. We came back late. I braced for awkwardness, but he just smiled like it was inevitable. "I like talking to you," he said, like he was stating a fact. When he asked me on a real date, there was no hesitation in his voice. He looked straight at me and said, "Would you go out with me this weekend?" And I said yes. Dating Ethan felt easy at first. We worked, then met up. We cooked or ordered takeout. We watched shows on my couch because my TV setup was better, and my kitchen had more counter space. He teased me for organizing my pantry like a miniature grocery store. I teased him for folding his clothes with military precision. His apartment was smaller, closer to downtown, minimalist. Mine felt lived in. Without really talking about it, he started staying over more and more, like the relationship quietly chose where it lived. Soon there were traces of him everywhere. His toothbrush in my bathroom, his hoodie draped over a chair, his favorite creamer sitting in my fridge. And I liked it. I liked coming home to something that felt full. I liked waking up to him half asleep, reaching for me like I was familiar comfort. He'd text me during the day, memes, small complaints about meetings, little updates that felt like intimacy. He'd tell me he loved how I had my life together, that it was refreshing dating someone stable. At the time, I heard that as praise. After all the mess I'd seen before, stability sounded like love. We weren't fireworks. We could sit in silence without it feeling heavy. We could talk for hours without forcing it. I thought dependable meant real. Then, around the 6-month mark, something shifted. Not dramatically, not in a way you could point to and say, "There, that's the moment." It was quieter. Like the background music changing just enough that you don't recognize the tune anymore. Ethan started commenting on other women. At first, it was harmless. An actress was beautiful. Someone on a show was stunning. Fine. People notice things. I've never been someone who polices where a partner looks. But it became constant. Every show, every outing, every time a woman passed us at the grocery store, he'd say something. Not just noticing, announcing it, like he wanted me to register that he was registering them. Then his social media habits changed. He started posting more, but not casually. Carefully. Photos taken from specific angles. Captions that felt rehearsed. He checked likes obsessively, got irritated when a post didn't perform. He'd take multiple selfies, compare them, then ask which one made his jaw look sharper. When I shrugged and said they all looked the same, he'd sigh like I'd failed something important. And the gym intensified. What had been a few visits a week turned into 5, sometimes 6. He joined a different gym, talked about optimizing workouts, tracking macros, improving his aesthetic. One night while we were making dinner, he mentioned a woman there. "She's insane," he said. When I asked what he meant, he smiled. "Model level. Her name's Sabrina. She's super nice. She helped me with my form." The way he said it made my stomach tighten, not because he'd talked to another woman, but because it felt intentional, like he was placing her name between us. After that, Sabrina came up constantly. Her workouts, her recommendations, her invitations. "Sabrina could give you tips too." I laughed, tried to keep it light, said I was fine with my own routine. He tilted his head, studying me. "Yeah, but you just do basic stuff. You could really level up." Level up, like I was something unfinished. Then the comments shifted. Small critiques dressed up as concern. Suggestions about my hair, my clothes, my potential. He said I could look amazing if I put in more effort. And sometimes he said it in front of other people, smiling like it was all affectionate teasing. One night, with friends over, he wrapped an arm around me and joked that he was just helping me upgrade my look. People laughed. I smiled, because I didn't know what else to do. Later, lying awake beside him, I stared at the ceiling and felt it clearly. I didn't feel cherished. I felt assessed. The breaking point didn't arrive immediately. It never does. First you tell yourself you're overreacting. Then you tell yourself relationships take compromise. Then you start adjusting, piece by piece, hoping to become whatever version they seem to want. The week of his friend Rachel's birthday party, I changed outfits twice. Not out of excitement, but out of fear of disappointing him. He watched me from the doorway, thoughtful, analytical, and told me which dress was more flattering. I wore it. On the drive there, he casually mentioned Sabrina would probably be there. I watched the Phoenix lights blur past the window and told myself everything was fine, but my gut didn't believe it. And within hours, in a crowded apartment with music too loud and laughter spilling everywhere, I was going to overhear a conversation that would make every strange moment of the last 2 months snap into place like a lock turning shut. The party was exactly what I expected, and somehow worse. Rachel lived in a downtown mid-rise. the kind of open-plan place that looks perfect online and turns into chaos once 30 people are packed inside. Music thumped through the walls, bass vibrating under my ribs. Someone had shoved all the furniture against the walls to create a makeshift dance floor. The kitchen was overflowing, people laughing too loud, red plastic cups everywhere, bottles lined up like trophies. Ethan seemed energized the second we walked in. He kissed my cheek, squeezed my hand, and then almost immediately let go to greet people. I followed a step behind, smiling, nodding, doing that thing women do where they make themselves pleasant and agreeable in rooms full of strangers. Then I saw Sabrina. I knew it was her before Ethan even said her name. She was standing near the kitchen island, laughing, her body angled perfectly, like she was always aware of where the camera might be. Tall, lean, gym-sculpted in a way that looked effortless. Long blonde hair pulled into a sleek ponytail. She wore a fitted black top and jeans that looked painted on. When Ethan spotted her, his face changed. Not dramatically, not obviously, just lit up. "Oh, there she is," he said like he'd been waiting. "That's Sabrina." He waved her over. "Hey," he called, already smiling wider than he had at me all evening. She walked toward us, eyes flicking to me briefly before locking onto him. "Ethan, you made it. Wouldn't miss it," he said. "Heather, this is Sabrina. Sabrina, Heather." She smiled at me, polite but distant. The kind of smile you give someone you've already categorized. "Nice to meet you," she said. "Yeah, you too," I replied. Ethan launched into conversation with her immediately. Gym talk, workouts, inside jokes I wasn't part of. I stood there holding my drink, nodding along like a prop. After a few minutes, I excused myself to the bathroom. I stared at my reflection under harsh fluorescent light. My dress, my hair, my face. I looked fine. I reminded myself of that. When I came back out, Ethan was still with Sabrina, laughing too hard at something she said. His hand brushed her arm as he reacted, casual, unthinking. Something twisted in my chest. I didn't want to cause a scene. I didn't want to be that girlfriend. So I did what I'd been doing more and more lately. I made myself smaller. I drifted into conversations with people I didn't know. Talked about work, about traffic, about nothing. Every few minutes, my eyes found Ethan again, and almost every time he was near her. Around 10, I went into the kitchen to grab a soda. The music was slightly quieter there, muffled by walls and bodies. I stood near the fridge, waiting for someone to move out of the way. That's when I heard my name. "So, are you happy with her?" a woman's voice asked. I didn't recognize it. I froze. Ethan's voice answered closer than I expected. "Yeah, I mean, Heather's great." I stayed still, my hand resting on the fridge handle, heart suddenly pounding. "She's really nice," another voice said. "Rachel's." "She's more than nice," Ethan replied quickly. "She's solid, reliable. She treats me really well." There was a pause. Then someone laughed softly. But the first woman asked. Ethan exhaled. I could hear the smile in his voice. "But I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if I'm settling." The word hit me like a slap. Settling? My vision narrowed. "Settling how?" Rachel asked. "I mean, looks-wise," he said. "Heather's fine. She's attractive enough. Nothing wrong with her, but compared to someone like Sabrina, there's just no comparison." I felt like the floor tilted. Someone made a sympathetic noise. "You can't help what you're attracted to." "Exactly," Ethan said. "And I love Heather's personality. I love how stable she is, how she has her life together. But sometimes it's hard, watching everyone else date these insanely hot people, while we're with someone who's just adequate." "Adequate?" I swallowed hard. Another woman laughed awkwardly. "Why can't you find someone who has Heather's personality and Sabrina's body?" Ethan laughed too. "Right. Is that too much to ask?" They all laughed. I didn't move. I don't know how long I stood there. Seconds, maybe minutes, staring at a stack of paper towels while my insides collapsed. "I mean, I chose Heather," Ethan continued. "She's the smart choice, the long-term choice. I just wish," he trailed off. "You wish what?" Rachel prompted. "I wish I didn't notice other women so much," he said. "But I do, and sometimes it makes me feel like I'm missing out." "Missing out on what? Someone hotter? Someone shinier? Someone he could show off without needing to explain her value? I couldn't breathe. I set the soda down slowly, quietly, like any sudden movement might shatter me completely. No one noticed me. They were too busy dissecting my worth like a hypothetical problem. I walked out of the kitchen, past the living room, past people dancing and laughing, past Ethan, who didn't even look at me, as I headed for the door. The cool night air hit my face like a shock. I got into my car, shut the door, and just sat there gripping the steering wheel. My phone buzzed. Ethan, I declined the call. It buzzed again. I let it ring. The third time I answered. "Hey, where did you go?" he asked, voice light, unaware. "The party's still going." "I left," I said. "What, why?" "I'm tired." "Oh, you didn't say goodbye." "I didn't feel like it." There was a pause. "Do you want me to come with you?" I thought about what I just heard about being the smart choice, the adequate one. "No," I said. "Stay. Have fun." "You sure?" "Yeah." I hung up before he could say anything else. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every comment from the past 2 months with new clarity. The comparisons, the suggestions, the way he'd looked at other women, the way he'd looked at me, like potential, not preference. Here's the thing about being called adequate. It's worse than being called ugly. Ugly is definitive. Adequate is temporary. Adequate is, this will do until something better comes along. I could have confronted him right away. I could have screamed, cried, demanded explanations. But what would be the point? He'd said what he really felt when he thought I wasn't listening. And once you hear the truth, you can't pretend it didn't land. By Sunday morning, I knew I wasn't going to fight to be chosen. I was going to walk away before he decided I wasn't worth settling for anymore. Sunday morning, sunlight spilled through my bedroom blinds like nothing had changed. That was the strangest part. The world kept moving. Birds chirped. Cars passed. My phone buzzed with notifications that had nothing to do with the fact that my relationship had quietly died the night before. Ethan texted around 10. "Ethan, did you get home okay last night?" I stared at the screen for a long moment before replying. "Me? Yeah." A few seconds passed. "Ethan, you left pretty suddenly. Everything okay?" I could have said 1,000 things. I could have told him I heard everything. I could have told him exactly how small he'd made me feel. I could have told him how deeply that word adequate had carved itself into my chest. Instead, I typed me. I just needed some space. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "Ethan, do you want to come over later? We can talk." Talk like this was a misunderstanding. Like there was some version of the night that didn't end with him laughing about how he wished my body belonged to someone else. Me. "I've got errands. Maybe later this week." That wasn't a lie. I did have errands. The first one was figuring out how to leave a man who thought loving me was a compromise. I spent the day cleaning my apartment with a focus that bordered on obsessive. I folded laundry that didn't need folding. I reorganized drawers that were already organized. I scrubbed surfaces until my hands smelled like lemon cleaner. Busy hands kept my thoughts from spiraling. By Monday evening, I had made my decision. I asked Ethan to come over. He showed up around 7 carrying takeout like nothing was wrong. Thai food, my favorite. He smiled when I opened the door, leaned in to kiss me, and paused when I didn't meet him halfway. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "We need to talk." We sat on the couch, the same couch where we'd spent countless nights watching shows, laughing, planning trips we'd never take now. Ethan shifted, sensing it. "What's going on?" "I think we should break up." The words landed softly. No accusation, no anger, just a statement. His face froze. "What?" he said, laughing a little like he'd misheard. "Where is this coming from?" "I've been thinking," I replied, "and I don't think this is working anymore." "That's Heather." "That's insane," he said. "Things are good. We're good. Are we?"
Is this about the party? If you're upset that I didn't leave when you did,
"I thought you said it was fine." "This isn't about the party." "Then what is it about?" His voice sharpened. Did I do something wrong? I could have lied, could have said we'd grown apart, could have blamed timing. Instead, I looked at him and said calmly, "I heard you." His breath caught. "Here? What?" At Rachel's party in the kitchen, color drained from his face. You were listening. I wasn't trying to be, I said, but I heard you say you were settling. Silence filled the room like smoke. That wasn't Heather. You took that out of context, he said quickly. It was just stupid guy talk. You called me adequate. He ran a hand through his hair. I was drunk. You weren't that drunk. I didn't mean it like that, he insisted. You know I love you. I said, you love how stable I am, how reliable I am. You don't love me. That's not true. Then why have you spent the last 2 months telling me how I could look better, dress better, train harder? I was trying to help. No, I said softly, you were trying to upgrade me. Tears welled in his eyes. You're blowing this way out of proportion. I don't think I am, I replied. You're allowed to want someone more attractive. You're allowed to notice other women, but I'm not going to be someone's backup plan while they wish they had someone else. I wasn't settling, he said desperately. I chose you. You chose me because I was safe. That's not a bad thing. It is when it's the only reason. He leaned forward, voice breaking. I can stop. I'll stop talking about other women. I won't make comments anymore. I'll do better. I want you to be with someone you're excited about. And I want to be with someone who doesn't think loving me is a compromise. He cried then, full messy tears. I don't want to lose you, he said. Please. Somewhere months ago, that might have worked, but once you hear someone say they're settling for you, there's no unhearing it. I've made up my mind, I said gently. He stayed for another 20 minutes, cycling through apologies, promises, anger, disbelief. None of it moved me. Eventually he packed up the things he'd left at my place. Hoodie, charger, shoes by the door. At the door he turned back. This is a mistake. Maybe, I said, but it's mine. After he left, the apartment felt impossibly quiet. The first week after the breakup was strange. Ethan texted, apologized, asked to talk, said he understood why I was hurt. I kept my responses short. Eventually the text slowed. I threw myself into work, into the gym, into routines. Not to prove anything, but because I needed somewhere to put all the energy I'd been spending trying to be enough for someone else. Through office gossip I never asked for, I heard Ethan wasn't doing great. He looked tired, distracted, snapped at coworkers, stopped posting on social media. Part of me felt bad. Most of me felt free. Month 2 was when something shifted. I went to a logistics conference in Las Vegas for work. 3 days of presentations, bad coffee, and networking. That's where I met Daniel. And everything I thought I knew about attraction was about to be rewritten. I met Daniel Reyes on the second day of a logistics conference in Las Vegas. Somewhere between a panel on supply chain optimization and my third cup of terrible hotel coffee. He was presenting for a partner company based in California, walking a room full of half-asleep professionals through inventory forecasting, like it was actually interesting. Clear slides, confident delivery, no condescension. He answered questions directly, without talking over anyone, or trying to sound smarter than he was. When the session ended, people clustered around him. I waited my turn, then said, "That presentation was really solid, especially the part about reducing redundancy across distribution centers." He smiled. Not performative, not impressed with himself, just warm. "Thanks. That's the part everyone usually pretends to understand." I laughed, and then we started talking about work at first, about inefficiencies we'd both dealt with, about how logistics is basically just solving the same problems in slightly different ways. Daniel was easy to talk to, not flirty, not distant, present. He was attractive in a way that didn't demand attention. About my height, athletic without being sculpted, dark hair he clearly didn't spend too much time on. He looked like someone who lived in the real world and liked it there. Later that day, we ended up sitting next to each other during another session, then grabbing lunch with a group. By dinner, it felt natural to keep talking about hiking, favorite restaurants, bad reality TV. "Are you seeing anyone?" he asked casually, while we were splitting dessert with a group. "No," I said, recently out of something. No follow-up questions. No prying. Just respect. Before we parted ways that night, he asked if I wanted to grab coffee the next morning before sessions. I said yes. We talked for 2 hours. I told him briefly about Ethan, about overhearing the conversation, about being called adequate. Daniel didn't interrupt, didn't minimize it. When I finished, he shook his head. That's not a you problem. I laughed softly. Feels like one. No, he said firmly. That's someone who doesn't know how to value what's in front of them. A few weeks later, Daniel came to Phoenix for work. We met for coffee, then lunch, then dinner. Conversation flowed effortlessly. He never commented on my body like it was something to evaluate. Never suggested improvements. Never compared me to anyone else. One night, while we were cooking at my place, he looked at me and said casually, "You know you're really attractive, right?" I froze. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loaded. It was said like an observation, not a judgment. "Oh," I said. "Thanks." He smiled. "I mean it." That was the difference. By January, we were officially dating. And slowly, without me realizing it, the tightness I'd been carrying in my chest started to loosen. Then in March, everything came full circle. Daniel was in town, and we went out to dinner in Scottsdale. Halfway through the meal, I looked up and saw Ethan walk in with a group of friends. Our eyes met. His went wide. He saw Daniel's hand resting casually on mine. 10 minutes later, Ethan approached the table. "Heather," he said, voice shaky, "can I talk to you?" I stood. Daniel squeezed my hand gently. Ethan didn't waste time. "Who is he?" "Someone I'm dating." "You moved on already?" His voice cracked. "It's been months." "She's really attractive," he said quietly, eyes flicking to Daniel. I met his gaze. "He thinks I am too." Tears filled his eyes. "I made a mistake, I know. I never should have said those things. I was insecure. I didn't mean them." "Maybe," I said, "but you still said them." "I miss you," he whispered, "every day." I felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, just clarity. "I hope you find someone who doesn't make you feel like you're settling," I said. "But it's not going to be me." I walked back to the table. Daniel smiled. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said, and I meant it. It's been 8 months now. Daniel and I are still together. He works remotely part of the time, and spends a lot of it in Phoenix now. We're talking about him moving here permanently. Ethan, from what I hear, is still struggling. I don't feel guilty, because here's what I learned. Being loved quietly isn't enough.